Welcome home. Welcome to our meeting. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to start with Samantha. We've talked about Mr. Trump in one way or another. And as we got the opportunity to have Samantha here with us, what we'll do is we'll ask her to give a slide presentation, a quick presentation, and give us a perspective on how things are from a US perspective, how the business world is evolving, how the textile industry is evolving. And after that, we'll move on to we have very valuable panelists with us. I'll do the introduction when the time comes around, not to waste any time. So let's hit the road, Samantha. So it's over to you.
Sure, absolutely. So I think we have some slides.
It's going to come up.
Okay.
We'll have the presentation up. We have a presentation.
So for those of you who aren't familiar, the U.S. Fashion Industry Association represents fashion brands, retailers, importers, and wholesalers, primarily based in the United States and doing business globally. So some of the biggest brands and retailers, I think many in this room today. And we are located in Washington, D.C. I like to show this map so you can see exactly where we are in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue, just a few blocks from our president, Donald Trump. And so in Washington, we try to predict what's going to happen with trade policy. And so I'll provide a brief update on some of the things that we've been hearing and seeing in Washington. And when we're trying to make these predictions, all we have to do actually is look at the president's words. So about a year ago, he said, "I want tariffs, bring me some tariffs." We can also look at his tweets. Here are just a few of his tweets on trade. Trade wars are good and easy to win, he said. He's working on fixing some of the worst and most unfair trade deals ever made by any country. Important to this week, he talked about NAFTA as the worst trade deal ever made and threatened to terminate it. And if you're familiar with this book, you know that this is Trump's way. He likes to keep people guessing, and he likes to keep the upper hand. So what exactly has he done? Well, actually, he's done a lot of the things that he said he would do. As I mentioned, he renegotiated the North American Free Trade Agreement. As of last week, it's now called the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Not quite as catchy as NAFTA, but it's something. And for our industry in particular, he's been imposing new penalty tariffs on imports from China. And in fact, we are seeing some of these imports hit the fashion industry now. I've highlighted the third list of tariffs that went into effect on September 24th, just last week, with 10% additional tariffs on many consumer products, in fact. Hats, headwear, leather apparel and accessories, handbags, wallets, furniture, and textiles are just some of the products on that list that are facing these tariff increases. So we've been very busy in our office on Pennsylvania Avenue. And what's on the horizon? We're fully expecting more trade restrictions and penalty tariffs to come into effect. President Trump has been threatening to place tariffs on all imports from China, so that is something we are watching very closely. As you may have seen, our president, Julie Hughes, was supposed to be here today, but she had to stay in Washington to deal with these issues and meet with administration officials. Of course, the administration is discussing the possibility of some bilateral trade agreements, most notably with the United Kingdom after Brexit. I'm in Geneva half the time. I've heard some rumblings of a potential agreement with Switzerland, Japan, some other countries as well. But we really are focused on these tariffs and what it means for the industry. And so I'm going to talk a little bit, very briefly, about what fashion brands and retailers are thinking about this, but then more importantly, what this means for all of you and some of the opportunities that this brings for the industry in Turkey. So USFIA conducts a study every year of the leading Brands and Retailers, we survey about 30 executives from some of the biggest brands. I can't name who they are, but brands that you definitely know and do business with. And so here are their top business concerns for the year ahead. Number one is the protectionist trade policy agenda in the United States. So as you saw in the previous slides, this is a big concern. Number two, market competition from e-commerce. We make the distinction between e-commerce and conventional peer competitors. So interestingly, executives are more concerned about competition from e-commerce. Number three is increasing production or sourcing cost, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I also highlighted number 7, finding a new sourcing base other than China. We are seeing brands and retailers actively looking for new sourcing destinations and as a way to mitigate these problems with the trade policy agenda and the increasing sourcing cost. So just some interesting stats about what brands think about trade protectionism. It was ranked the #1 concern for the second year in a row. So in 2017 and in 2018, this is executives' biggest concerns, and I look forward to hearing what these executives think about that as well. What's really interesting is that before 2016, so before Trump was the nominee for the Republican Party, brands weren't really thinking about trade protectionism that much. It was ranked between number 8 and number 11. But now a majority of executives think this is one of the top challenges to doing business. And we also are seeing cost pressure returning this year. So if you look at this chart, I don't know if you can see the numbers, but the bottom row is 2017, and the red and the pink is what brands, how they perceived cost increases as having a substantial, modest, or slight cost increase. And you can see in 2018, this has increased quite a bit. And just a look at what executives see as the biggest factors impacting cost. Labor cost, 93% say that labor cost will be one of the biggest factors impacting these cost increases, but of course also trade barriers and compliance, as well as relevant to our discussions today, cost related to factory, social, and environmental compliance. And I just wanted to show this quote as well. This is from one of the brands who completed the survey last year. They said, "We will never be completely out of China due to their speed and ease of doing business. The only thing that could change is a protectionist trade agenda." So now that we are seeing this protectionist trade agenda go into effect in the United States, but also elsewhere in the world, that number 7, back a few slides earlier, the fact that brands are looking for new sourcing destinations is becoming all the more important to try to combat this trade agenda. And of course, this year over last year, sourcing cost and finding this new sourcing base, executives said that's even more important this year than last year. So what does that mean for the textile and apparel industry here in Turkey and your opportunities in the United States? Well, I think that this is a great time for you to do more business with the United States, to try to capture some of that market share. I would say that it's probably one of the best times ever, looking at those concerns, concerns about the trade agenda, concerns about cost, and the need to find new sourcing destinations. It's really a great time to increase your business with US brands. I have just a few more slides to show you. Turkey actually has been increasing your imports to the United States already. In 2017, you were ranked number 14 for total textile and apparel imports. And now for the year ending in June, you're already up to number 12 with a 20% increase in value. Apparel-specific imports also increased about 15% in value in the last year. And if you're thinking about what are some of the biggest opportunities for doing more business with US brands and retailers, here are some of the fastest growing products. So I chose these products because they have a fairly high value that you're already importing into the United States. But the growth has been rather massive for some of them. So for example, for man-made fiber slacks, we saw a 56% growth in value in the last year in what you're shipping to the United States. Also knit shirts, wool slacks, and blouses as well. And I think we can share these slides if people are interested to see this. And so just to wrap up, you know, the trade agenda is a big concern in the United States. We're facing new tariffs. We're facing uncertainty with our supply chains. And of course, we're facing concerns about cost. But the economy is strong. I think retail is doing well. For the last couple years, there's been a lot of talk about the death of retail. But I think that the economy is strong. So, you know, combined with Turkey's high-quality, experienced supply chain and your cost-effective apparel manufacturing supply chain, I think this equals a really big opportunity for Turkey. And just so that we don't end on a down note talking about trade, I do like to show that the industry is in fact optimistic and more optimistic this year than they were last year. When we conducted this survey in 2017, we took the poll in March and April of 2017, so that was just after the Trump administration took office. Only about 71% of executives were optimistic. And this year, it jumped back up to 84%. So I think there's a lot of opportunity both in the United States, but also for Turkish manufacturers. And so I'd be happy to take any questions.
Samantha, thanks a lot for setting the ground. A big hand of applause.